All right, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Bulletproof Dental Practice Podcast. Today, we are with my good buddy and second time to the Bulletproof Podcast, Garrett Gunderson. Garrett, thanks for coming on the show again. I actually just was able to introduce Craig and Garrett and told them they were very similar. Before I hit record, we were actually talking about how Garrett's jumped into stand-up comedy. I don't know why I just giggled when I said that. And Craig was saying how he would crush it and do the same thing. And I was just thinking to myself, I was like, these guys are kind of the same. Like, you're both tall, you're both funny. Like, anyway, buddy, welcome back. You have the second distinct honor of being a repeat guest on the show. There's another guy, one of my other buddies named Steve Rasner. He was the first guy to be back on the show 2 times, but this is the first time with Craig as a co-host. So
all right, cool.
A whole new game.
Yeah.
Garrett, kind of tell us what you've been working on, man.
Brand new book just came out, 5-day weekend. Dude, what's crazy is 40,000 copies in stores. Like, for context, Killing Sacred Cows was 5,000 copies in bookstores. So the next time you're in an airport, it'll probably hit you in the face. It's everywhere, man.
How did that? How does that happen? And I'm asking for a friend because I know 2 guys who have a book coming out, and we have no clue on.
2 guys. Their name is Jeter and Greg.
All right, cool.
One's in it. One's in.
So how did you go from getting it only at 5,000 out the one time to now it's everywhere in airports?
3 main safactors. Number 1, Killing Sacred Cows hit New York Times, so it had good book scan numbers. I think we sold 66,000 copies. The bigger factor, though, number 2, is we went with Bard Press. So Ray Bard has only done 7 books in the last 13 years. The last book I'm sure you've heard of and seen, The One Thing. So The One Thing sold more than 1 million copies. So that's the second factor. Number 3, my co-author Nick Halleck has been throwing massive amounts of cash into marketing, and the bookstores, you buy that real estate basically. Like,
is he your co-author? You wrote the book with him?
Yeah, 5-day weekend was his concept, and he wanted to add some pieces to it, and he didn't realize how much I would add. I wrote a substantial amount of the book when he brought me in. But
I know the feeling.
He epitomizes the 5-day weekend. This dude lives in 100. He's got houses in the Hollywood Hills and Miami and Greece, and he's living the gangster lifestyle that I'd only seen by one other person named Peter Boulden, but actually doesn't have to work as much as Peter. So
actually, I do have a 5-day weekend. I do have a 5-day weekend.
Okay, cool.
No, but let's talk about that. So, I mean, literally, I was a big fan. I haven't read it, obviously, because you haven't sent it to me yet. But
no, it is on the way, though. I just didn't know it would be delayed.
Checks in the mail. It's on the way, I promise. But, is it kind of like in the same vein as the 4-day work week, where it really isn't like, hey, you really aren't working a 4-hour work week, rather, like a Tim Ferriss? I'm not trying to put you in that same silo, but tell me the premise of how this can the 5-day can apply to dentists.
All right, so first off, the 4-hour work week, the title was written by Tim being a brilliant marketer and testing the most popular title.
Yeah.
The second thing is it's 4-hour work week's about outsourcing and frugality. Those are 2 things you're not going to hear much about in this book.
Okay.
5-day weekend instead is about how do you keep a lot more of the money you make by getting money back from the government, financial institutions, banks, that kind of stuff. Number 2, how do you learn to make more money as an individual? So expand and scale if you're a business owner, or even if you're an employee, how do you start to be a lot more valuable to the organization you're serving so you can get a piece of the upside? And then number 3, how do you grow your money? So those are the 3 main factors. The 4th piece of the book is how do you invest back in yourself, which for you, Peter, would be pretty rudimentary reading in that last segment. I think for a lot of the population, it might be a bigger epiphany. But it's really broken down into those 4 things. And it's taking this industrial mindset that people have been indoctrinated with and saying, this is crap. Why are you still thinking about assembly line thinking where you work for 5 days, you take 2 days off so you don't die, and then you go back to the grind on that Monday? Instead, we're saying 2 days where you maintain what you have by monitoring and managing it, then 5 days to create whatever you want. And some of that might be time you spend in adventure. Some of it might be in something more significant within your business and scaling that business, or time to think, or launching a podcast because you enjoy it.
I love it. I think that's such an important, freeing yourself up, creating that bandwidth for just what you're saying. I mean, I actually have tried to create a whole day a week just for kind of creative thinking. And I know that seems kind of woo-foo, but like, when you're actually in the process of working, you're laser focused on what you're doing, and you just can't create things that are going to move the needle forward. And so you need to create that space. I'm totally there. Craig?
Yeah, I mean, that sounds like a dream to me. If you think Peter is working hard, I got a lot of time commitment. So I'm intrigued. I love what you're saying so far.
Wait, was that
by
just?
By the way, Craig, Peter's known me for a while. So first off, he knew when I would go live in Park City for the summers, and that would, I think, inspire and equally annoy him. And then I don't know if you know this, Peter, but I spent 2 months in Italy last year. We just went 3 months. And right now I'm booked for a full month in Europe, going Croatia, Spain, and Italy coming up, which I'm going to do zero work on any of those days unless I choose to write or I choose to like create in some way. I'm just not doing business meetings while I'm there.
That's amazing, dude. Good for you, man. That's awesome. And what a cool thing to look forward to. That's coming up. So obviously you're doing it around your kids' schooling, and taking the summers and really maximizing it.
Yeah, we're choosing the most expensive time to go to Europe. That's basically how I planned it.
When everyone else from America is going to Europe, right? So let's dive in. Let's unpack some of that thing in the book, because, I, as someone who's been through your program, we talked about this before hit record, being back in 2008, I'm still applying, some of the things that you taught me way back when have still applied to my life. And I feel like they've really helped. And one of the things we talked about was the cash flow analysis that you've helped with. Yeah. And I still use that formula. I don't know it by heart because I actually have it in my spreadsheet. But when I'm looking at my net worth spreadsheet that I have just for me privately, and looking at my debts and my, my assets, debts and assets, I still use that. I actually have that built into my spreadsheet that I put in my debt, and it'll say, hey, pay this one off first. So where I'm going with this is like, you just have some real tangible things that help, we dentists. Yeah. And I want to hear kind of what's new under the cover of the 5-day work week.
How about I give you some new in the cover of 5-day weekend?
5-day weekend, sorry.
Since you're hybriding me and Tim Ferriss together.
I am not. I just was wondering. I was giving you a chance to make the differentiation.
No, but seriously, Tim, I have a question for you, Tim. I would love to know.
Comedy.
Dude, I got to tell you, this is hilarious. The first time I met Tim Ferriss, we were in China, did a layover. We're going to Vietnam, and my buddy Joe Polish is filming him and saying, look at this 4-hour work week. This dude's working in a layover. We haven't even been on vacation 4 hours. And they almost got in a fist fight. Then Tim and I kind of became somewhat buddies. He stayed at my house a couple of times when he was writing a 4-hour body. And dude, like when he was writing that, he's writing about like thermogenesis or something. And he's like, hey man, can I take a bath in your master bathtub? And he made me take him to a gas station, buy some ice so he could have an ice bath because we ate too much pizza. So the dude is truly like a product of his product,
Yeah, I met him actually with Tony a couple months ago over December. He was at Date with Destiny. I met him. Cool dude. So
anyway, 5-day weekend. Let me give you guys some actual things from the book. And let me give you stuff that would apply to dentists that isn't in the book that I think would be more game-changing and mind-blowing. So, here's the biggest thing. There's all these tax changes, and dentists got screwed in the new tax change because you're service-based professionals. So I've been researching, studying, and figured out how to navigate that in a more impactful way. But let me
wait. Stop for a second. We got screwed in that? Everyone keeps telling me we did awesome.
No.
If you're a service-based business, you don't get the pass-through deduction, which is the 20% deduction.
Yeah, we got totally screwed. Like architects, lawyers, dentists, we just got totally shafted.
Hey, sorry, man, Garrett, you guys spent extra to go to school. Let us take you away tax deductions from you. Hey, guys, insurance sucks. Let us take tax deductions away from you. I don't know what the deal is. That was supposed to be this amazing tax plan, and it's not amazing.
Not for dentists, not for service providers. So go on. I'm excited to hear about this.
I'm sorry I derailed you on that, Garrett. Go ahead, bud.
Okay, so since I just ruined your day, let me make it better, okay?
We're going to have to cut this short. I need to go cry in the corner here.
Like, I've been feeling really good about this.
I've had a great day until just now.
So here's the two major things when it comes to tax, okay? Everyone knows that you should have an account to get tax deductions. That's true. But the biggest way to save tax is to reclassify your income, which comes from attorneys. And if you don't have an attorney that's either a tax attorney or a corporate attorney that understands tax, as a dentist, I'm seeing people spend way too much on taxes and they're tipping the government. So, Peter, since I ruined your day, I'm going to make it better here, all right? Because there's really a third aspect to this, which is every 3 years, I really recommend you get a different set of eyes on your taxes, whether it's a CPA or a tax attorney, because if you miss anything, you have 3 years you can go back and amend. So here's some things that you might want to go back and amend when it comes to your taxes, okay? If you've done any R&D or domestic production. So have you done anything with this? Like if you've ever done stuff with software, or have you ever done anything like with content like you're doing here on the podcast?
Yeah, any training, like new training texts and stuff like I have done some of that just this past year, actually. I'm glad you're bringing this up.
So the new law, that was called Section 199. Now it's Section 199A. So I don't know, they took that away moving forward. It's now a 20% straight deduction. What you could do in the past is go back. If you filed an extension in 2014, you go all the way back to 2014. And you've already written it off on what you paid your employees or the hard costs that you had to develop anything. But what most people don't write off is you can take 9% of what was related to your income from all that research. So let's say you had $1 million of income from all that. That would be a $90,000 tax deduction. So you get that in addition to writing off paying the employees, in addition to the money that you paid for the software. I mean, we had an optometrist. They got to take the deduction. They didn't even create the glasses. They just assembled the glasses at their location, right? And they got to use this DPAD, domestic production and R&D combined. So that would be one thing that dentists can save a boatload of money on. Let
me just jump onto that. That was something I was aware of for the listening audience. If you have like a CERAC or your manufacturing crowns in the office, you could apply that 199 code as well.
Or even like training on a cone beam or anything like that. Like there's a lot of that.
But manufacturing specific, like milling teeth, that's gone now, but that's something you can go backwards on. Because that's considered you're actually manufacturing something. You're taking a block of raw material and making a crown. And so.
Yeah, like speaking of Jim Arnold, he's shared this publicly, so we could share it. I mean, when I met him, he owned a building and he didn't cost segregate it. So if you own your building, you can cost segregate it where you bring in an engineer, and that engineer can actually separate out the different items in the business and start writing them off at an accelerated rate. So that saved him like $30,000 a year. So that's another thing. Like I could talk about all sorts of investment stuff, but the bottom line is if I could save people tens of thousands of dollars on tax, that's like 10 years of investing because it takes so long to build up enough investment account to kick off cash flow. So another big item, and like Peter, dude, this is something I think would be really cool for you to look into because Atlanta's got some of these places. But if you found buildings that are in historic areas or that have any historic facade, like you could tell the building I'm in if you're watching this on video behind me, this is a hardware building from 1902. So it's got a historic facade to it. There's something where you can donate, it's called a historic easement. The facade that you'll never change that facade. You'll never tear the building down and rebuild it. You'll keep that facade up. You can donate that and get a 4-to-1 tax credit or tax deduction on that value. So that might pay for the actual building. Then you can still rent the building out, office inside of the building, and all that would be gravy on top of that. Because I don't know if you guys have heard much about conservation easements, but that's another kind of thing that's going on. My problem with conservation easements is a lot of people are buying into them. I think that they were really intended when you own a bunch of land that you never want to develop and you give up your development rights. And that could be somewhere between 4-to-1 or 7-to-1 type of tax deduction. So that's great. But if you're getting into a syndicate and it's with people you've never met and you get audited, you have a high audit risk that it's going to be disallowed. And if it's more than 20% of your tax deductions, that's a 25% penalty. So I'd rather look at like a historic easement as another opportunity.
Is that the whole building? You can so if you bought a building for $1 million, you can take that historic 4-to-1 ratio?
It wouldn't be on the full million necessarily. It would be on what's the value of the historic facade. So it might be more like a full $1 million deduction because you're giving it up for a period of time, which might be, maybe it's worth $250,000 because of the historical facade.
Wow.
And so
that's great. I never heard of that.
just cover the expense of the building, basically, right?
Hey, Garrett, I got a quick question for you. Going back to the new tax laws and how it got screwed on that, you had intimated about reclassifying some of your income.
Yeah.
Can we go back to that for a second? Are you aware of, because initially when that tax law came through, a lot of the CPAs, the dental CPAs that I talk to say, oh, well, that's why people are rushing to do DSOs right now. But from what I understood,
potentially.
From what I understood, though, that wouldn't pass the sniff test, because to make a shell corporation for the sole purpose of evading a tax law would probably not hold up the audit.
So let me show you the things that you could do for sure. And we're just going to spend our time today on the reclassification of income because it's big tax money. The two main factors, and there is more, but the two main ones are, how can you take your active income and classify it as passive income? But the bigger one is, how do you take ordinary income and classify it as capital gains income? That's the bigger deduction. So let's talk about active to passive and then how you can even get this pass-through deduction. So inside of your dental practices, you have created unique processes and intellectual property. So where do you have intellectual property where you could train other dentists, even if it's your associates or even other people in the profession? So think about, instead of being a B2C type of business where you're serving the patient, how do you serve the profession? And you set up a separate company and make it an intellectual property company. So I have an intellectual property company called Ripwater. Ripwater is the licensee behind this book with all the content in it. I just did a deal with Rich Dad Poor Dad where I licensed my content. I've done stuff with Garda Financial, Vault AIS. I can go through a bunch of companies, and then I've already created a precedent with my other intellectual property that I get paid at least 15%. So even when I speak on stage, I pay my intellectual property company 15% of anything I do, from speaking or consulting, because I'm using my intellectual property. So I'm now filtering a lot of money in this intellectual property company that I started back in 2012. And all that money comes in as a royalty, or at least as a 1099, so it's not getting hit with self-employment tax. Even though I max that out, it's still not getting hit with Medicare and Medicaid, which is 3.2% savings. Not a huge savings, but it's savings. But here's the other thing. It's now intellectual property. I can take where in consulting I can in that take the pass-through deduction. It qualifies as an intellectual property company. It passes that sniff test. So that's one way that dentists, and you guys in particular, can start to take advantage of some of that pass-through, but you also get a passive income nature. Now, even where I'm really pissed about the new tax law is, before, when I developed the strategy, it was going to become a capital gain asset. Now, under the new tax laws, it looks like intellectual property, they're going to count as ordinary income, which pisses me off. So now I have to even refine it further, but that's just another thing that I did last year to reclassify my income. Is, I don't know how familiar you guys are with captive insurance agencies, but if you do it,
I wanted to talk to you about this one, by the way.
Yeah, if you do a feasibility study and you do it right, you got to do it right. But if you do it right, you can put money in pre-tax. You have to keep it in there for a year, but you could insure reputation management, employee turnover, embezzlement. It's your own insurance company. It's your own cash that goes in it, goes in pre-tax. But when you take it out, it becomes a capital gain. So you go from ordinary income to capital gain. That's probably going to cut most of your taxes in half. And you now are getting to put money away pre-tax to insure your business. Right now, if you're insuring your business, it's with post-tax dollars. And dentists face a ton of risk, whether it's insurance changes, whether it's lawsuits, because people think you're a doctor, you must have money. I'm gonna ask for whatever because I'm an entitled little bastard, like the rest of the populations become, that sues, unfortunately, far too often. So anyway.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you. That's funny you mentioned the captive, because a buddy of mine, he owns several trucking dealerships, and his personnel healthcare costs were getting so exorbitant, as they are for all of us. And he just created a captive, and I spoke to, for his own personal medical insurance. I spoke to somebody about it, and they said, you need to get bigger, but if you have the influence to maybe involve more people in dentistry on a national level, I could entertain something that would be very applicable for your profession. So that's cool that you're bringing that up.
So is there a critical mass to the captive insurance?
Yes, there is. Well, for health insurance, there is, at least.
Oh, okay.
Because imagine
Garrett, that's not what you're talking about, actually.
I'm just insuring like actual risks of the business. Like, and to me, if you can't sock away 300 grand, it's not worth doing, because it is a pain to set up and it has expenses to the front end of it. So it's not worth it. And you got to make sure you do it right, because some people skip the steps to do it cheap. And then if you're ever audited, it's only going to hold up if you have a true feasibility study and you've funded it properly and you're running it with CPAs and attorneys running it like an insurance company, and you're not just pulling money out whenever you want. It's like, you're pulling it out because it either had no claim or you filed a claim against it. And what's cool is actually 2% of the money I put in it goes to reinsurance. So if I ever had a claim bigger than the money in there, I actually have insurance companies backing my insurance company, which every insurance company in America has it done that way. So Geico actually started as a captive insurance agency before it became what it is today. So they obviously expanded their vision from insuring, some government plans to becoming, public and helping a lot more people out. But I just like the thought of reclassifying income. I mean, that's the cool strategy. Now, you guys, I don't know where Craig lives, but Peter, you live in Atlanta, man. If you're willing to go live in Puerto Rico for 4 months of the year,
I am.
And then be out of the U.S. for 6 total months, we got you at a 4% tax rate, bro. Act 20 and Act 22, you can get down to 4% tax. 4%.
Federal? Like everything?
That's your total tax rate, man, because you're now considered that your primary residence is in Puerto Rico. You qualify for Act 20 and 22, which came out because Bill Clinton actually repealed the plan they used to have for corporations at 4% based upon what Puerto Rico wanted, and they got annihilated, where every citizen that was young started coming to the U.S., going to school in the U.S. because of reciprocal agreements. And so what they did was they said, we got to do something, and they've been attracting people setting up shop. It used to be you have to hire 5 Puerto Rican employees. It used to be that you had to own a home within 18 months. They're starting to make that even more easy, where you just have to be there for at least 4 months. You have to be out of the United States for 6 total months. And so for me, I'm like, cool, I live in Utah in the mountains for 6 months, Italy in the countryside for 2 months, and then Puerto Rico for 4 months. And then that damn hurricane ruined everything for my wife, where she's like, I don't want to go. So now I'm having to resell her on the whole thing. But I'm like, imagine, she's like, what do we do for our family? I'm like, first class tickets anytime they want, because we're saving so much money in tax. I've got clients that are down there now. I have clients looking into it again. So
it's funny you mentioned that. Actually, I just, and I'm getting, this is probably getting off of dental podcast kind of stuff, but Craig knows that I'm big into cryptocurrencies and the blockchain technology, and they're actually trying to set up what they're called a cryptopia down there, right? Yeah, because of the advantages, and so that's a big haven for a lot of, actually know a lot of personal guys, of friends of mine who are doing the same, like you're saying. They have a lot of stuff to protect, and they're kind of looking at property there. That's interesting.
Yep. So I mean,
Craig lives down in Florida, by the way, down in Del Rey. So he's even closer. He's way closer to there than you or I, buddy.
And my wife is Puerto Rican, so you can come stay at my house and get a good taste of what it would be like over there.
And dude, I mean, there's more bad things happen in Florida than the rest of the world combined. So you're totally cool in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I got my gun right below the camera here. It's like literally right there. Assault rifles, grenades, everything.
I don't know if you need that as much as you just need, like, I imagine that half of it's just old people that don't know where they're going and how they're driving that's causing the problems, and then the other half are just people that live in the swamps that just have no conception of reality, because I don't know if half the stories are real or fake. I don't know. Half the time I read about Florida, I feel like I'm reading The Onion, and then I find out it's really like coming in USA Today. So
really, I'm not hearing that stuff. I don't know.
You live in Del Rey, which is probably a little bit different.
Yeah, a little different.
It's like Atlanta versus I don't know.
You're going to be careful what you say there, right? Like, you're like, What do I say that I don't?
We'll get an email afterwards. Why did you rag on Augusta? That's ridiculous.
I love Augusta.
So anyway, yeah, we're a little off topic. That's what happens when we're talking about all this stuff. But I mean, there's so much tax advantage that people don't know about. Speaking of Augusta, I don't know if you guys know about the Augusta Rule when it comes to taxes. This is a major tax deduction. All right. Yeah. Thanks to this little event that happens in Augusta every year, there was a senator that had a home there. He wanted to rent it out, but he didn't want to pay taxes on the rental income. So hence the Augusta Rule. You can rent out your home let's say you're having a patient function, employee function, vendor function at your home, you can rent it to your business, and your business gets to take a tax deduction, but as long as it's 14 days or less, you don't have to claim that as personal income. So like, think about doing 14 events at your house a year. And, like I like to do it at times where there's peak things going on here in Utah, where I could charge more because maybe Sundance is happening, or maybe Mormon conference is happening, or the outdoor recreation show used to be here. We lost it, damn it. But I used to, I could charge like $7,500 on those types of days, and then that's a write-off. Or
literally, if you rented your house, just use round numbers, $10,000, 14 times, 140,000. That comes off your adjusted gross income, 140 grand.
Yeah, you just got to make sure that you can justify that rent. No, I'm just saying. Is that what it would have cost to get a conference, conference room at that time at a hotel, or an Airbnb for a similar type of property? So there's times where I'd probably only charge $2,500 on like a regular Thursday night with nothing going on, but on a weekend with something going on, I'm going to jack the price up to $7,500.
So in my particular circumstance, we do like these quarterly doctors dinners where I take all my doctors to like a fancy restaurant. We rent out like a room, that type of thing. Just literally having that at my house, same thing, catered and all that. That would be an applicable write-off. That's cool.
That is cool.
So yeah, if you want to mention any other cities, I'll let you know if there's tax advantages that come along.
Well, you know what? I got a question, because a lot of us dentists that are listening here, and Peter and I in particular, we have holding companies that hold our buildings in. And now, just thinking about, unfortunately in Florida, I just got a really nice friendly love letter from the Florida Department of Revenue, and they want me to pay back rent and penalties and interest. They want me to pay sales tax on the rent I had to write myself. So I have a large building, it's 13,000 square feet, so you can imagine what the rent looks like. But I owed my 6.5% sales tax on all the rent checks I've been writing. So that was fun. That was a big hit. But talk to us about that income that comes through in the building, because that's not a service company. So that would be those LLCs and S corps that hold our buildings. Those are now subject to 20% tax, correct?
Yeah, the thing is, we don't have time to get into it on this podcast. There's there's an equation for that 20% pass through, and it's you have to like go through it. It takes about, I don't know, last time I had my tax attorney show me, it took 30 freaking minutes to go through, and they're all a little bit confused. So the answer is yes, just, it may not be a straight 20%. It may not be as awesome as we thought, but it is valuable. And you are right. That's a reclassification of income example. So for reclassification of income, I'm sure a lot of the doctors know, set up an S corp or choose an S election in your LLC, pay yourself what you'd pay a associate, and then take the rest in distributions. Distributions will get hit with self-employment tax. That's a reclassification, moving from active to passive. We talked about everything from the captive to the intellectual property company, which would, once again, that would happen, or even charging yourself a really high rent, right? Because you charge yourself the highest rent, that's better than taking it as a W-2, other than your wonderful sales tax that you got hit with, and every state's a little bit different. But even reclassification, I mean, if you're going to be a multi-practice doctor, or you're getting paid to go speak on techniques or strategies, and you have clients outside of your state, like Florida's great, you're 0% state tax, but there's people probably in New York or California that if you're now getting hit with state tax with income that's coming from outside of your state, there's something called a grantor defective income trust. In Wyoming, it's known as a wing. In Nevada, it's known as a ning, where you can avoid state tax on parts of your income. So like, it's just being in the know, because if you don't know these things, you're giving the government more than you need to. If your accountant's telling you how conservative they are, they're just telling you, hey, I'm making sure you pay more in tax, and when you find out, you can't be mad at me because I'm telling you I'm conservative. There's no reason to be overpaying when it's legal and ethical not to overpay. Now, it might be intelligent not to move something offshore, because offshore might make you a target, and you might still have to pay taxes if they go after you. But taking advantage of everything we're talking about here would pass any audit, Like, it's just going to pass an audit. And right now, by the way, you can pay your kids in the new tax law. One of the benefits is you can pay your kids $12,000 instead of $6,300 tax-free. So unfortunately, you could probably only justify putting them on your website or on your walls for $2,500 a year. They have to do real work to a certain degree to get that tax deduction. If you get audited and you're like, I pay my kids, what do they do? They mow the lawn. They're like $12,000. That's a pretty expensive lawnmower.
Well, it's proven kids have very small hands, so they can access the posterior regions of patients' mouths. You give them small mirrors and you feed them some sugar, and they can really crank out some dentistry. I mean,
I had a dentist that said their accountant wouldn't let them hire their kids because of child labor laws, and I was like, I don't see how that applies to your kid. Why would the government say you can pay your kids $12,000? Oh, but it has to meet child labor laws, so this is really a non-benefit. So I don't. What's actually funny is we track referral codes like Peter does. So patients who send a lot of patients, they set off flags at a certain amount of money. We have a system in our Dentrix to pull that number out. But my daughter routinely is one of the highest refers to the practice. She's 8 and she goes to school and I guess she's talking to the teachers, and the teachers are all signing up for Invisalign. Like, who sent you? Like, well, actually your daughter Sage did. Perfect.
So I think Sage is responsible for like 80 grand last year of referrals. But what I love what you're saying about, Garrett, is that everybody, the talk and the covers of Wall Street Journal and Forbes magazine and all these magazines are, what stock to pick or what asset to put your or what vehicle to put your assets into. And really, it's when you think about saving 10, 15% of your income, you can't get that reliably in the market. Everybody's happy with 5 and 6% returns there, but no one's talking about this stuff. So I'm really happy we're bringing this stuff up, because it's really a lot more advantageous to keep more of what you make. So that's cool.
Yeah. We gave some real practical tax ideas too, hopefully.
So let's talk about your company, because I know nothing about what you do. Obviously, I'm scribbling notes down. What is it that you guys do? Like, how would a dentist like myself get involved with you, and what services do you provide?
We provide for dentists what really highly affluent people would normally have access to, but the dentist wouldn't, which is a family office. So the Rockefellers designed a family office where they had just one family, like one financial firm working for their office that had accountants, attorneys, investment advisors, cash flow people, risk managers. So when I saw that when I was 22 years old, I'm like, oh, well, I think entrepreneurs should have access to that. And I didn't realize it was hard as hell to build. So it took me about a decade, but we've got all those people, accountants and attorneys and investment advisors. But our job is to be the financial quarterback, get people a second opinion on everything they're doing, fix anything that's broken, and help put more money in their pocket and show them how to achieve economic independence. So we're not a commission-based or fees for assets under management based. We're a tuition-based backed by results and implementation. We get paid by people writing us a check and helping them navigate their entire financial picture and help them do a lot of the heavy lifting so it's easier, and then they get done in a year to 3 years, what it takes most people 30 years to get done. Okay, so I have a couple of questions. So you would work with my or the dentist's existing accountant, or you take over the accounting services as well? 50-50, depends. If they're doing a good job and make tweaks, we tell them to make tweaks. If they're doing a horrendous job, we have you replace them. You're in control of that. But we do a 3-year review, the last 3 years taxes and the current year tax strategy in our program for everyone. And I've had doctors be like, oh, I got the best accountant in the world. I'm like, cool, just let us do a review. Like, no reason to. I'm like, okay, just let us do the review. And then we find like $120,000 in going back the last 3 years, find out they're not paying themselves correctly. They're not taking advantage of Augusta Rule. They're overpaying because of how they're paying for their buildings. They're not cost segregating, and it's another $20,000 a year moving forward. 93% of the time we save someone tax that we work with. And the cool thing, like you said, I just want to make sure I understood you correctly. So let's just say I brought you on for my own personal consulting for my tax stuff. You said there's a 3-year, I'm allowed to go back 3 years. So you could literally go back in 2015 or 16 and say, we think he paid $100,000 more in tax and we want to fight this, and I could get some of that money back as a credit. Is that possible? Absolutely. You're not going to be able to be like, oh, I should have paid my kids. I didn't pay my kids. Sorry. No. Nothing you can do about that. But there's a lot of tax, like the R&D credits and the DPAD credits that we talked about to start this. We can go back and get those. That would be a good example. I had 2 business partners die in a plane crash in '06, and I didn't meet proactively with my accounting team, didn't get them the data, so I overpaid my taxes in '06. But in '08, when I had the different set of eyes look at it, we found I overpaid by $54,000. So I got that money back from the IRS. Every now and again, people say, well, does that increase my chance of audit? I'm like, well, if the IRS is writing you a check because you're giving them the documentation of why you overpaid, we've seen no increased audit rates from that. Mm-hmm. So I think that people have just been scared by their accounting professionals of, you don't want to get audited. Look, you don't want to invite an audit. And yes, doing a captive insurance agency doubles your chance of audit. So that's why you have to do it intelligently if you're going to do it. And there are people that abuse it. They invest in places that aren't approved with insurance companies. They use it as a personal bank. And so, yeah, you're going to get in trouble for those kind of things. But I actually have a methodology. If someone gets audited, we play a game. What are the chances we save them tax? I've been doing this since '98. We've only had someone owe extra twice. One was totally my mistake because I just didn't have them pay their state tax on liquidating a stock. That was just a dumb mistake. And then the other one was, I don't even know if it was our fault. It was a chiropractor it might have been their accounting team. They were in the middle of transitioning. So we paid the $5,500 that they ended up losing in an audit. It wasn't a big deal. Otherwise, well, I would say a third of the time, maybe some years as much as half the time, we get them more money back during an audit. Well organized, documented, hand everything to the auditor, treat the auditor really well, and then when that's over, start asking questions. Hey, did we write this off enough? Or what are the rules with this? And hey, he actually used it more on this and we didn't really take it, because now they're signing off on it. Now we can be in the gray area because we have an auditor signing off on it. So I had a guy that once, 4.5 years after working with us and saving 6 figures, got audited, and he called me and goes, dude, I'm gonna get arrested. He was a doctor. I'm like, I'm not surprised, dude. You're a crazy son of a bitch. And actually, the reality was he was just scared in the audit he did something wrong. He didn't. Everything was well documented. We saved him $5,500 in the audit. We wrote off his vehicle more aggressively. We wrote off more of his home office, where he got to write off half of his utilities, and we weren't quite going that aggressive. So, because he was a coach and he was a practice management consultant and a chiropractor.
Yeah, I'm always shocked when I tell people, like when Peter and I talk about taxes and stuff like that. I think I have the dubious honor. I haven't got the trophy yet, but I have the dubious honor of paying the most in tax for the amount of money I make. It's incredible.
Not the award that you want.
No, I know. I haven't got the trophy yet. That check behind me is not from the IRS.
It's funny. I'm going to you said something, Garrett, about that one client of yours who was reluctant to have his stuff looked at. And Craig and I were just recently, we have some strategic partner, kind of our business advocates that have that run a 401k that's really designed for dentists, and it's really discovering or help me out, Greg. Basically, uncovering. Thank you. Uncovering the egregious fees that have been charged to dentists in their 401ks, and they're really kind of, and what they were telling us a story about how, like, I really don't want you to send in my documents because I really like John because he's my 401k guy, and like he brings me donuts, and like I like him, and I know his family, and we're just like, this is the mentality sometimes, is that we as dentists, I think we're so loyal to people, and our sales reps and our insurance salesmen and our 401k.
You're a patient. He's a patient.
Yeah, I can't lose him. I can't lose his friendship and his patient. But this meantime, a lot of these people are losing millions of dollars in the long term in their 401k, which I know your first book talks about the disadvantages of.
If you are going to do it, why? Like,
don't pay as much fee. Pay as little fees as possible to the
I'm
administrator.
a fan of the robo advisors when it comes to 401ks. What do you need? What do you need a 401k administrator for? What are they actually doing for you?
Well, there's a couple things. Number one, you have, as the plan sponsor and owner, you have the fiduciary rule, so you have liability. But the real factor is most of us dentists are getting completely hosed. Like we're like getting it through like the insurance companies or the payroll administration companies, and the fee disclosure documents are like 40 or 50 pages long. There's no like truth in lending disclosure, so it's crazy.
I think it's a scary time to offer a 401k. Guess what? We don't offer a 401k at my firm.
Why is that?
401ks suck. I mean, I'll give you the perfect example of why 401ks are a horrendous idea, and how you need to call me, Craig, on the day that I'm dead right on this, because I'm going to give you the very extreme version here. But first of all, imagine that I call you and I'm like, hey, bro, let's get in a partnership. You should know I'm $20 trillion in debt, but let's be in a partnership. You put your money in, and I won't charge you what I said I was going to charge you. So you're going to feel like you're saving 37 cents on every dollar. The bottom line is, though, you didn't save the money, dude. The money is stuck inside of a plan. You didn't pay less tax, and that tax ended up in your pocket. That tax ended stuck inside of a plan that is owned by the government, controlled by the government, and you're the beneficiary of it. They're telling you if you want out early, 10% more than what you actually thought you saved off the top if you get out early. If you wait all the way till 59 and a half, the government gets to say, based upon their economic circumstance, what their percentage take is at that point. So do you think that the taxes when you're 59 and a half are going to be lower than they are today? Do you plan on making less money at that time than you make today? So because taxes are likely to go up, and even this amazing tax plan that Trump passed, amazing I put in quotations and it's laughable, because now you can only write off half of what you could write off before on mortgage interest. You can't give employee fringe benefits like you used to and write them off. They're now going to disallow those. They were supposed to take it down to 3 tax brackets, and now it's still 6 instead of 7. A lot of them kick in earlier than they did before. This whole pass-through didn't get to be what it was supposed to be. I mean, I could go on and on about the horrendous things that are involved in this. And the bottom line is, we're $20 trillion in debt. They're probably going to be the next administration come in, raise the taxes again. What happens if they're back what they used to be? They used to be, if we average it out since 1913, the top bracket's 61.7%. If you don't your taxes, you're going to be pissed if you could have just paid 37 cents today. Then later on, you find out you're paying 61 cents. And even worse, what about, do you really trust the government isn't going to have a sundry tax on this again? If you had more than $1 million in your plans back in the 90s, there was a sundry tax of an extra 10% if you pulled out more than a certain amount of money. How stupid is that? That's like Cyprus when they said, oh, if you have more than 100 grand in your bank account, we're just going to take it because we're broke as the government. The government is going to invade and pillage, and dare I use the word, they're going to rape these plans. The people are screwed, dude. These plans are horrendous. They are
Garrett, just do me a favor. Tell me how you really feel, because I'm not really getting a sure sense of where you're at emotionally on this. I kind of feel that you think they're okay, though, right? I mean, generally,
other than that, they're beautiful.
Right. That's what I thought.
Okay, so I'll give the solution, because I've never really given a lot of solution to Peter. I just leave him in pain all the time on these things.
Yeah, the pain's too much, man. You're playing too much freaking pain.
So there's 2 ideas here. Number 1, everyone should look into charitable remainder trusts, because if you ever sell a highly appreciated capital gain asset, like a business, a building, or piece of real estate, or a stock, you can actually create tax deductions while avoiding tax when you sell those assets. It's a really cool strategy on
Say it again.
Something.
Charitable what?
Charitable remainder trust. Charitable trust.
Right. Okay.
So I write about it and what would the Rockefellers do. I can give out that book for a free download if they want to read more about it. I know we're running out of time. That's why I'm not going into too much detail, but that could help you offset the tax to get money out of your 401k and make it better.
Okay.
Even better than that, though, I would look at converting these things to a Roth, because you have a one-time conversion where you can move your 401k to a Roth 401k or your IRA to a Roth IRA. But here's the deal. I'm going to teach, this is so cool because this is going to cut the tax in half. So, because you have to pay tax when you convert it. But if you use something called a structured annuity as one example, it's a rescue strategy where, you know how lottery winners spend more than they make in the lottery, and then there's these entire financial firms that come in and say, we'll buy out your annuity for pennies on the dollar, but give you a lump sum of money, and they take it. And now that investment company gets all the stream of income forevermore, or for however long that annuity was, because these lotteries aren't usually paid up front, right? So you can get something like that. There's multiple versions of it, but you could get a structured annuity where it's valued at half of what your actual 401k is for government tax purposes, convert it to that Roth, so you're only paying tax on half the value, but the structured annuity is actually worth a lot more than that because of the future income stream that comes from it that is now guaranteed. And you can now turn that into cash flow rather than accumulation. And you can move it to a Roth and pay half the tax you're going to pay otherwise in a day where taxes are a little bit lower than they're probably going to be in the future. So, I'm basically just giving so much stuff here that people are just going to have to freaking hire me if they want to do this.
I was going to say, my brain's kind of, I'm pretty good at that. My brain's kind of exploding right now.
Yeah, mine too. Yeah. Mine too. But doesn't a Roth I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with this. So I hope I don't anger you like the last 401k question I had, because I'm happy you're in Utah. You were like, I'm happy I'm not in spitting zone, because I could see the passion coming out. Yeah. It's like when Peter and I talk about DOs on number 14, we get freaking crazy about that stuff. So anyway, isn't a Roth IRA have a limitation as to how much you can put in? It's like you're only allowed if you make $100,000 or something like that. It's like
you can start a Roth and fund a Roth. You could do a Roth conversion one time.
Ah.
So meaning once you have built a significant amount of equity in your 401k, you could do a Roth election?
You could convert it and pay the tax, but by doing this evaluation where it would be half, it would look like half the value up front, you'd pay half the tax on that conversion.
And then
Roth it would be tax-free from there.
And the government, you don't think, can then at some point 20 years
from now, they're for sure going to invade and shit on the Roth too. But the good news is you can just pull your principal out tax-free at that point.
Right. Oh, wow.
So they're going to piss with the Roth. You watch. That won't always be a tax-free thing, because if you read the fine print, it's tax-deferred and under certain circumstances, tax-free upon distribution. That's just an easy place for them to go fish for tax dollars. And if you can go to the fish farm to get tax dollars versus a dry well or the swamp, for you Florida folk, then why not go to the fish farm?
Just the lowest hanging fruit for sure. And they already have access to it. Yeah, I hear you. All right. So let me, let's wrap with this, Garrett, because I've actually was thinking about asking you this several times, but so you have obviously, you have a lot of experience in the field. You're super intelligent. You've seen a lot of good scenarios with people, a lot of bad scenarios. We have a lot of younger, dentists who listen. Mm-hmm. So I don't know if my question is going to be, what would you, looking back, what are the biggest mistakes that you see made of people that are maybe, have been out 20 years and we could help prevent it for some of the younger generation?
Yeah.
Or, I think that's good. Yeah. I mean, what do you, help us, course correct, if you will.
The first thing is they don't build enough liquidity. So if you build up enough cash reserves, you have staying power for economic changes, employee turnover, unexpected surprises in your business because of maybe a reputation management thing that you have to deal with, or a health issue you might have personally. People overemphasize investing and underemphasize saving. So automatically save instead of automatically invest. Automatic investing is the stupidest idea. Automatically putting money in a 401k when you don't know what the market's going to do, that's being like, Peter, let's just automatically buy Facebook ads. It doesn't matter how they convert. Let's just keep putting money in every month without adjusting. That's as stupid as a 401k is. So automatically save, then deliberately invest and build plenty of liquidity, because you're going to have major opportunities in the next 20 years that most dentists just watch pass them by because the banks wouldn't finance it quick enough and the person with cash bought that practice.
But you don't. But you just mentioned how you don't let the fiat currency that's $20 trillion in debt that's backed by that currency. Now you're saying go liquid in something that isn't you don't have much faith in anyway.
Well, I have liquidity in 4 places.
Okay.
My wallet that's got cryptocurrency in it, my safe that's got gold and silver, and my cash value policies that are earning 5%, and cash in a safe and cash in a bank. So really 5 places.
Okay. And what type of, how much money do you have in your bunker with the rations that,
I only have, and I say this, I once had a doctor say, are you ever worried you're going to get shot in the back of the head? And I'm like, this just for the first time just now, actually. Yeah. When he said that.
No, I wasn't until just now.
Now I am. But no, I just have 30,000 or 40,000 cash in actual cash that's sitting in a safe. I've got a substantial amount in cash value that's protected from liability and bankruptcy, and I can bring liquid within 72 hours to buy whatever I want with it. And, I don't have a ton of Bitcoin. I have I have a couple shares in a mine with my co-author's got so much freaking Bitcoin, dude. He's been mining crypto since like
2012.
Yeah, and he swore it off twice because it got all stolen from him at one time and all this. But but he's crushing it, and he just every time he gets 100% gain, he cashes out half, and then he takes, and as soon as that half gets a 20% gain, he cashes out another half, and then he just continues to mine it because he thinks that's where the money is. He's like everybody else is speculating in his mind, so he knows a boatload about it. And the first time I tried to buy Bitcoin, my controller disagreed, and so she didn't send the 25,000 that would now be worth 7 figures, and I still lose a little sleep over that every now and again.
Wow. So when you say that liquidable asset, or you say dentists just go run to invest, Pete and I were talking the other day, and Pete's like, we were just saying how our buildings are forced savings accounts because it's you've committed, you got to pay that mortgage. What do you think of that logic?
As long as they're capable of handling the payment, and if they have enough liquidity, they probably can handle the payment. And then I think the other thing is, don't be a cheapskate when you hire badass people and spend a lot of time recruiting and learning how to hire. If you learn how to hire, build liquidity, and then own a building, you're going to be ahead of 99% of dentists. I mean, dude, as a patient, I don't really know whether a dentist is good or not. I mean, when it comes down to it, I mean, I think that dentists get really hyped up on technology, on machinery, and on technique. And the reality is, I mean, Peter probably, like when he was more active chairside, there's probably just like a boatload of girls that went just because Peter's handsome, Like when it comes down to it, if you have good bedside manner, like, you have a nice office that looks good. Like, I mean, I think that 90% of the reason I would go to a dentist is because they have a nice office over whether I know they're a badass dentist or not,
Or if they could communicate to you in layman's terms, like problem solution, right? I think that's a problem that we have in our industry. We are engineers and technicians and very technical. And sometimes you have to remember that, like, so to your point, like, it's not like, hey, let me see your last 5 crown preps before you can do this one on me,
When I show up to the dental office looking like homeless Jesus because I got long hair and I'm wearing like whatever yoga clothes I've never done yoga in, doesn't mean I can't afford whatever treatment you want at any time. And I think a lot of dentists, it's hilarious when they're like, well, maybe eventually you want to do this. I'm like, well, shit, I'm here right now. Can we do it right now? Well, it might be cheaper if you do it here. I'm like, well, maybe I don't care about cheap. Maybe I just care about efficiency. And I feel like half the dentists that I talk to, I'm like, God, dude, you just like be bold with what your recommendations are. Just tell them the best thing to freaking do and tell them, do that. As a matter of fact, I'd rather see them do that and say, if you don't do this, I'm not going to be your dentist. Well, dude, you might lose some business, but you're losing way more being a pansy.
Yeah, for sure.
I agree with that, actually. Craig, anything else, buddy? But what you want to you want to
get yelled at, Craig?
You want to talk about some more. Let's think of it.
You want to talk about a defined benefit plan? The only dumber idea than a 401k? Because
I got a dumber idea than that. I got whole life insurance plans. Is probably takes the #1 product.
No, dude, I overfund the hell out of my whole life. That's where I have a whole boatload of cash in whole life.
Really?
Poorly designed whole life sucks, but But I like the properly designed stuff with heavy cash in it.
No, I mean that covered a lot of ground. I think
we ended on a high point, dude. I didn't even.
Yeah, you didn't even rant on that.
Yeah,
that's true. It's true. I feel there's a relative celebration here.
So, back to your book, is it on Amazon? Can we order it now, or is it?
Yeah, you go to 5dayweekend.com. I know that that's one place. I'd go to wealthfactory.com/podcast and grab my other books on me, and then we'll let you know. Like we have a plan right now. I'm thinking about just sending 5,000 copies out to people that I've worked with in the past. To me, a book is just a catalyst to get people to think differently, and I don't try to make money on them. I try to make a difference with them. So a lot of times I just buy the books and send them to people. So get on wealthfactory.com/podcast, get some of our resources, and we might send it to you. I mean, hell, feel free to go buy it. It's probably $20. I don't think it costs us a lot more to build. So it's cheap. It's a bargain.
Yeah. As we've learned, like the process of publishing a book is by no means a moneymaker,
No.
It's almost altruistic in its nature, you know, but you spend massive. Honestly, Craig, if someone had told you how much time it would take to get this book published, you'd been like, no, I'm good. We're just not going to do this. Like,
yeah, that's true.
Hindsight. So Garrett, and it's, you know, Garrett, you're obviously a multi-time author, so you definitely have the pain of that. Well, buddy, enjoy your. When do you leave? When do you leave for your summer trip?
May 30th. Start in Paris. Got a villa in Croatia after that.
Make sure you go to Montenegro a little bit.
All right, Montenegro.
It's right near. You know, it's right near Croatia. I mean, right near. You say you're going to Dubrovnik?
We fly into Split.
Oh, nice. And like Split, Hvar, in that area.
And then, we got a villa that matches the gangsterhood of your house, dude. So like we can
really.
I'll be taking pictures, being like, "Look at this, dude. Look at this."
John Gotti style, huh? I love it. I'll be expecting those pictures come June when I'm hot and angry in Atlanta, and hot and angry.
I'll be on the Adriatic Sea saying, "I've never seen colors like this," and you'll be like,
"Beautiful." I love my life. I have a 5-day weekend all the time.
I'll just be sitting there with this open by the poolside, not reading it because I wrote it.
You can just send me pictures on repeat and just taunt me all summer long. Be like, God, don't you want to have my life? Well, buddy, good to see you as always, man. And Craig and Garrett, I'm glad to connect you guys, and that was fun, fun and spirited. And buddy, we'll talk to you later. And I can't wait to get my book in the mail.
All right, man. I'll get that out to you.
See you, pal.
If you get more than one, pass it on to Craig.
I will.
Yeah, please do. Please
Craig,
do.
email me your address and I'll get it to you.
But truly, we will put a lot of this in the show notes because I do want people to have access to your books, and so we will put. I'll have Kim get with you and get all the right links so we can get our audience hooked up with you if they want.
All right.
Thanks pal.
Good stuff, man. Thank you,
guys.